Today I'll be discussing communication in team sports. And the article that I'll be discussing pertaining to this topic is Further Operationalization of Intra-Team Communication in Sports, an updated version of the Scale of Effective Communication in Team Sports, the SECTS 2. So communication is defined in this article as a social process which involves the social exchange of symbols or behaviors between two or more people. So this can involve verbal or nonverbal behaviors. And the reason why communication is being explored by the researchers in this article is because communication of conflict resolution and mutual respect is an essential aspect of team functioning. So, the theoretical framework for the intra-team communication in SECTS is the social exchange theories, which is a family of theories that view social interactions as a series of interdependent exchanges among individuals or parties that involve the exchange of valued commodities. And usually, similar resources are exchanged for similar resources. So, for example, if you show friendliness to another person, they most likely will show you friendliness in return. So the scale for effective communication in team sports, the SECTS, was developed to evaluate the degree of communication within sports teams. So the 4 factors of effective team communication include acceptance. So that's acceptance of one another. Distinctiveness, so that would be a difference from other social units. And positive conflict, which is constructive intra-team conflict. And negative conflict, which is destructive intra-team conflict. So the purpose of the study to improve the SECTS by having a greater balance of items for each of the factors, and those are the 4 factors that I just listed. Also, to support the validity of the factor structure, to support the construct validity for examining the relationship between team cohesion and effective communication, to support the predictive validity of the SECTS by examining relationships between effective intra-team communication and subsequent team performance. So there are 2 parts of this study. In the first study, there were 350 team athletes. 182 were female, 166 were male. 166 participated at the university varsity level and 180 at the recreational level. The mean age of participation was 21 years. The instruments used in this first study was the SECTS, the 25-item scale. There were 7 items for the factor of acceptance, 6 for each positive conflict, negative conflict, and distinctiveness. All items were rated on a 7-point Likert type scale, ranging from 1 being hardly ever and 7 being almost always. All items on the scale did originate from athletes, either through focus groups or through open-ended questionnaires. Another instrument that was used was the Group Environment Questionnaire, the GEQ, and this is widely used in athletic atmospheres today. It's an 18-item questionnaire comprised of 4 interrelated factors. There's the Group Integration Social, the GIS, which is the perception that the team has of itself as a social entity. And there's the Group Integration Task, the GIT, which is the team members' perceptions of one another as a task-oriented unit. And there's the Individual Attraction to Group Social, ATGS, which is the members' perception of their social affiliation to the team. Then the Individual Attraction to Group Task, ATGT, which is the member's perception of connection to the team as a task-oriented unit. for the procedure, it was fairly simple. All athletes who participated completed both the SECTS and the GEQ questionnaires after their practice in a quiet room. They didn't all take it at once. They were separated into groups by their team. In the second study, there were 31 teams comprised of 79 athletes. 29 were female, 43 were male. And the instrument used in this study was the SECTS-2, which is a 15-item scale that measures acceptance, distinctiveness, positive conflict, and negative conflict on the 7-point Likert type scale, which ranges from the 1 to 7, as indicated before. So the results of these two studies is that a more well-rounded measure was developed. It went from the SECTS, which was originally created in 2002, to now the SECTS-2. And the measure found to be valid by testing it with the GEQ and also team performance outcomes, so how each individual team did in their division at the end of the season. So originally the SECTS was a 16-item scale, that's the one from 2003. And it was heavily weighted on acceptance, and it wasn't a very well-rounded representation of all the factors of team communication. Then in the first study of this article was the 25-item scale, the 7 acceptance, the 6 in positive conflict, 6 in negative conflict, and distinctiveness. And then in the second study of this article, it was reduced to 15 items, and 4 in acceptance, in positive conflict, negative conflict, and 3 for distinctiveness. So the study has been cut down by one question, ultimately, but it encompasses a broader range of the factors. So some practical applications from the study that we can take away is that acceptance and distinctiveness should be seen as valued interactions among teammates. It's because they promote a unity of group, both in the task and social unit, so in the productivity inside the game and then also outside. This study shows that positive conflict showed the best relationship with team cohesion. So a good activity for teams would be to focus on not attacking one another, but providing positive and constructive feedback to one another so that they can grow together as a unit. And distinctiveness was the only factor that significantly correlated with performance. So we could take this to mean that it's important to discuss with your team how they're different from other social groups. And so ways that you can foster distinctiveness as your team is through uniforms, team chants, things like that can help create a feeling of being something different than other teams. So my overall impressions for this article: in the second study, I thought it was odd that they only used recreational level athletes. In the first study, they used both varsity level collegiate athletes and recreational level athletes, so I thought that the results could have provided some more rich data if they would have stayed significant between the two studies. And this article is mainly focused on validity, and so validity is a process, not a result. So the main aim of this study was to validate the SECTS-2, and it does stand as valid and a reliable scale of inter-team communication. So future studies should be conducted to explore the correlations between the 4 components of the SECTS and team performance.